What is up, guys? Welcome into yet another edition of the Ben Garcia Show. Benjamin Garcia Show number 50. That's what we are celebrating today. Not really. There's a lot of different things going on in sports. You do not want to hear about me talking about 50 episodes now with the Ben Garcia Show, which, let's just call it what it is a decent accomplishment. But either way, thank you for listening on YouTube, watching, putting a face to the voice. The subscriber numbers continue to go up. I had my largest subscriber number jump over this past month. I don't know what it is. Maybe you guys like listening to good takes. Maybe you guys think I have bad takes and you think they're just funny. Or the NFL season is just bringing plentiful fruits of subscribers and viewership, and we appreciate that as well. A lot of things to get to on today's edition of the Ben Garcia Show. A little bit of a shorter show, though. Listen, bear with me. It is Thanksgiving week. Just be thankful that I'm getting this out for you when I do. Should get something as well on Friday. But either way, got a lot to get to on this edition of the Ben Garcia Show. So without further ado, let's jump into Monday Night Football. So the Baltimore Ravens go into Los Angeles last night, and what is a very rare home field advantage for the Los Angeles Chargers last night. A lot of fans there, not necessarily a Baltimore Ravens taking over crowd, which makes sense. East Coast to West Coast is just a very long trip to do in the middle of the holidays that will be starting up here in like just a couple of days. So that makes sense. But either way, I am a little surprised about this game. And let's just start on the Baltimore Ravens side. There are a lot of people that give Lamar Jackson so much crap, who go after him as a passer, who go after him personally, who go after how he's became one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. All the guy does is win. And he's very consistent as well. Now, you could talk about his playoff resume. I get it. It's hard to win in the playoffs. Name a quarterback in the NFL whose name is not Patrick Mahomes who consistently gets it done in the playoffs. Name him. I'll wait for it. Or you couldn't think of one. Josh Allen has got issues in the playoffs. Maybe you could say Joe Burrow. That's fine. Justin Herbert, we'll get to him in just a second. No playoff wins. His signature playoff moment is blowing a 27-7 lead that they had at halftime to Trevor Lawrence. List goes on and on. I'm not going to hold it against Lamar Jackson because it's tough for him to win the big game. Well, last night was a big game. They lose that game last night. They then fall behind the Chargers in the tiebreaker, fall behind in the playoff race to potentially get the 2 seed, potentially get the 3 seed. You cannot have that. And let's just talk about it like this. The Baltimore Ravens, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a John Harbaugh issue. I honestly don't understand. Consistently go away from what they do well in big, high-pressure, high-leverage games. They go away from the running attack. They, for some reason, like to prove to everyone that they were wrong about Lamar Jackson as a passer. I am not of the belief that Lamar Jackson is a bad passer, but it is no secret that when they pass less, he uses his legs more, and the rushing attack is getting after the opposing team. They're a much better team. Now, he's got 25 touchdowns, 3 interceptions on the year. He's throwing the ball pretty effectively, but he's not necessarily a precise passer like a Mahomes, like a Allen, like one of those guys, a Burrow, even a Herbert at times. This is what the Baltimore Ravens need to be. This is not rocket science. Give the ball to Derrick Henry and beat teams over the top with cheap touchdowns who are then cheating to stop the run. Last night, Derrick Henry, 24 carries for 140 yards. No touchdowns, who cares? 140 yards. This Chargers defense was one of the best defenses this year. And against the run, one of the better ones. This Ravens team ran all over the Chargers opposing secondary and all over the front seven of this Chargers defense. This is what the Ravens need to be. The Ravens have to be a run team first. The only way they are going to beat Patrick Mahomes is by running the football effectively, getting after the opposing team's front seven, gashing them at the point of attack, making them gassed, making them fatigued, and playing keep away from Patrick Mahomes. How is the way that teams beat Brady for years or beat Peyton Manning for years? It wasn't because they out-quarterbacked them, unless it was Brady and Peyton Manning going up against each other. Joe Flacco beat Tom Brady in a playoff game. Nick Foles beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. The Giants beat Tom Brady twice with Eli Manning in the Super Bowl. It wasn't because they out-quarterbacked them. It's because they kept their offense on the field, gashed opposing defenses, and made it incredibly tough for them to do anything else. And let's talk about this really quickly. So I guess I should say, to wrap that up, I don't mean to end that thought right there, but if the Ravens are going to eventually make the Super Bowl and get over the Patrick Mahomes hump, it is not with Lamar Jackson's arm, and that is not an indictment of Lamar Jackson. But the rushing attack has to keep the offense of the Chiefs, the offense of the Bills, those better teams in the AFC at bay. Rush the ball, make Lamar's arm a secondary threat, and beat the opposing team. Stop getting away from the game plan. It ain't rocket science. Now let's go over to this. If I asked you, Lamar Jackson or Justin Herbert, who would you take? Because if I was comparing the two quarterbacks from last night, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, I'm taking Lamar Jackson every day that ends in Y and twice on Sunday. Lamar Jackson, yeah, he's not great in the playoffs. Who is? Name a quarterback right now that consistently wins in the playoffs whose name isn't Patrick Mahomes. Maybe it's Joe Burrow. Maybe you say, listen, Burrow's been to the Super Bowl. That's cool. That's two. I love Josh Allen. But let's be honest here. He has trouble getting over the hump in the playoffs against who? Patrick Mahomes. So I'm not going to hold it against Lamar Jackson that he doesn't win the big game very often. Or in big spots when the Ravens go away from their game plan, he doesn't show up necessarily. But call it what it is. Let's say you like Herbert because of Lamar Jackson's shortcomings. Where's Justin Herbert's playoff win? His signature playoff moment is blowing a 27-7 lead that they had at halftime against the Trevor Lawrence-led Jacksonville Jaguars. That ain't good. So you have to go to the tiebreakers. Well, Lamar's got 2 MVPs. Lamar wins more games. If I'm not mistaken, 10-1 after a bye, 11-1 now after a bye. Or I'm sorry, 11-1 now, coming off of a loss, not after a bye. If you are taking Justin Herbert at this point over Lamar Jackson, you do not have a valid reason for it. It is just a preference. And that's okay. People are allowed to have preferences. But you can't hold Lamar Jackson's playoff resume against him because Justin Herbert literally doesn't have a playoff resume, was there one time, blew a 27-7 lead that they had at the half to Trevor Lawrence. So go to the tiebreakers. Lamar Jackson has won more games. Lamar Jackson has 2 MVPs, might win a third one. You want to talk about arm strength? You want to talk about the bigger, stronger quarterback? That's fine. I'll just take the guy that consistently wins games. Yeah, sure, maybe Lamar's been better supported, but it's not like Justin Herbert has had no one. Now, head coaching issues, there are fans that don't like John Harbaugh. So you can mention the Brandon Staley thing, but for years he had Mike Williams and Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler and Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa and Derwin James. Quit acting like Justin Herbert hasn't had anything. At some point, you have to win games. And he's doing that this year. But at home, against Lamar Jackson, against a banged-up defense that isn't very good against the passing attack, the Chargers lost. There is no argument to be made right now that if you're starting a franchise, you're taking Justin Herbert over Lamar Jackson. You might have a preference, but there's no good reason anymore. So at this point, there's a few things we learned last night. The Baltimore Ravens are still really, really good. The passing attack, the passing defense can get better. And Lamar Jackson, right now, you might not like the way he throws the football. You might think he's got some playoff shortcomings. Those are fair. But if you're going to the tiebreakers and not going to the playoff issue that Justin Herbert's still searching for his first win, the choice is clear. The better player right now is Lamar Jackson. And it isn't necessarily close, because you have to go to regular season success. And the Baltimore Ravens have been the number one seed before. Lamar Jackson has won multiple MVPs, might win a third one this year. And Justin Herbert has largely left you scratching your head saying, I'm pretty sure he's a really good quarterback, but man, do we got to put a lot of things around him to finally get him to start winning games. I get it. Brandon Staley was an idiot. That's fine. But he still had weapons before. He still had a decent O-line before. He's now got a better offensive line. He's still got guys on the defensive side. At some point, you just have to win games. You have to stop making excuses. And if we're just talking about right now, who would you rather have, Lamar Jackson or Justin Herbert, there's no tangible evidence, there's no tangible argument to take Justin Herbert over Lamar Jackson right now. At that point, it's just a preference. MVPs, first seeds in the playoffs, and a couple of playoff wins, you're taking Lamar Jackson over Justin Herbert all day long. And I'm not so sure it's particularly close. All right, let's talk about a team that I've been highly critical of so far this year. And highly critical, I think, for a good reason. I am not going to apologize for being highly critical of teams, highly critical of players, highly critical of coaches. That ain't me. If you're looking for apologies, go somewhere else. I'm sorry. That's just how I am. I'm not going to apologize for having a sports opinion. If I attack someone personally, of course, I'll apologize. But it's sports. Nothing of this should be really taken seriously. My analysis should be, but sports at the end of the day is something fun. I was so wrong. Like so wrong about the signing of Saquon Barkley. Saquon, his statistics were not amazing. They weren't with the New York Giants, especially of recently noted. He's had a lot of injuries, but some of that could be he just wasn't supported. He has been a slam dunk, home run, underpaid running back at this point for the Philadelphia Eagles. And good for the Eagles. Good for them. They're a ton of fun. They have a lot of talent on this team. Nick Sirianni, I think, is like 6 or 7-0 since he shaved his head, which is the weirdest statistic of the NFL season, but we have one of those each and every year. There's an argument right now with the Philadelphia Eagles about Saquon Barkley that we'll get to in just a second. But I want to talk about this first. I want to get to this. There's a lot of talk, and there's a lot of people falling in love with the Philadelphia Eagles. A lot of people penciling them in to the conference championship game. And who can blame them? The offense has a lot of talent. Devonta Smith, if I'm not even mistaken, did not play in this game. A.J. Brown, though, guys like Dallas Goedert, Jalen Hurts is a B-plus quarterback. Saquon Barkley, defensively, drafted well this year. Credit to the GM, Howie Roseman. The defense, they've got a couple of those white guys back there that everyone's humming about because it's kind of fun that we have those guys for the first time pretty much ever. But this team's got talent everywhere. The defense, led by Vic Fangio, is really starting to come together. A lot of talent on that side of the ball too. Special teams is pretty good. And everyone has pretty much penciled them in. And it seems like everyone has forgotten about the what I think is the main course at times. So at this point, because of the talent, because of the defense stepping into their own, because of Vic Fangio, because of Saquon Barkley, how awesome he's been, because of Jalen Hurts, because of A.J. Brown, everyone is pretty much penciling this team in to the NFC Conference Championship game against the Detroit Lions. And by the way, if they played that game, I'd take the Detroit Lions all day long. And here's why. Everyone is forgetting about the head coach. I think middle-of-the-road head coaches can win Super Bowls. And I think Nick Sirianni is somewhere between a lower-end to middle-end head coach. I wouldn't even put him into the B-plus tier of head coaches. He is too erratic. He's too off his rocker. And I think when things start to go sideways, he doesn't know how to react. This team will not win a Super Bowl. I'd briefly mentioned before they wouldn't even make the playoffs. That's clearly wrong at this point. Got to admit when you're wrong. They're 9-2. I was overboard, but the Nick Sirianni arguing with the fan base was just so mind-boggling. I cannot believe that just was gone, and he sat at the podium with his kid to avoid criticism. All of it, I couldn't do. But I overreacted. The Philadelphia Eagles are not true Super Bowl contenders because of their head coach. Until Nick Sirianni eventually makes it to the Super Bowl this time around without his coordinators, who I thought were instrumental to that Super Bowl run a few years ago, I won't take the guy seriously. I think he's too erratic. I don't trust him situationally, game to game, down to down. I don't trust him with clock management. I think this team's shortcomings is going to come at the head coaching expense. I just can't trust him. I don't know how other people have forgotten about years of data just because of a brief win streak, which is impressive, but for the most part, hasn't asked Nick Sirianni to make crucial game-to-game, down-to-down decisions, and he's succeeded at it. There have been times where he has really dropped the ball in situationally decisions. So at this point, the only thing holding the Eagles back, and I hope they still fire the guy at the end of the year, is Nick Sirianni. There's just no chance this team can win a Super Bowl with that kind of buffoonery as your head coach. I don't take him seriously. He lost me when he started fighting with fans in the crowd. There's no coming back from that. This team will be held back by Nick Sirianni. If they just had an average head coach that just stood on the sidelines and did nothing, I might pick them to win the Super Bowl. They're that uberly talented. But when you have a bad head coach, that can negate a lot. And I think, just honestly, that's what Nick Sirianni is going to do. Openly negate some of the great things that this team can do. And that's where I feel about Nick Sirianni and the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, here's the other thing. Here's where positive. If you're an Eagles fan and you're still watching this video and listening to me. There is the argument to be made that Saquon Barkley should be the MVP. We haven't had a true, in my opinion, argument for running back, or not even running back, but I guess it has been either running back or quarterback, but whatever. We have never had a true argument since, I believe, 2012 when Adrian Peterson won the MVP for a running back winning the award. And I think it is totally fair. I'm going to be honest with you. If I had a ballot for MVP, I would still give Josh Allen the award. It's long overdue. He is carrying that organization. And if you want to go by valuable or most outstanding, I think Josh Allen is the better player, and he's far more valuable to Saquon Barkley than Saquon Barkley is the Philadelphia Eagles. I just think that that's the case. He's more valuable for the Bills than Saquon Barkley is to the Philadelphia Eagles, and I think he's just a better talent. But if you want to argue that Saquon Barkley is the MVP, I'm not going to give you a hard time for it. Saquon is carrying this team. Despite the buffoonery at head coach, and despite a defense that has been sketchy at times but has gotten a lot better, he has been the consistent engine that could for this team. 255 yards, 2 touchdowns last night through 11 games of the regular season. He's first in carries, he's first in yards, 4th in touchdowns, and is a home run just waiting to happen on down-to-down plays. This guy just makes big plays happen. If you wanted to have the argument that he is the MVP, I get it. Because it's hard even for me, who will continue to argue that Josh Allen is the MVP, and I won't waver from that, barring a complete meltdown of Josh Allen late in the season. But we have seen what the Philadelphia Eagles look like without Saquon Barkley. That was last year. And they were an unmitigated mess in the second half of the season. Saquon Barkley is the player that it doesn't matter what situation he's in, home or away, down or up in a game, he will continuously be the consistent player that puts this team over the top. And he has done that. I think it was 22 carries last night for 255 yards is absurd. 26 carries, 255 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a long of 72 yards for a touchdown. If you took away those 72 yards, like you just want to say, oh, he's a home run hitter, 72 yards. Like, first off, home runs still count in football, but if you want to take that away, still has well over 100 yards. He wasn't a one long touchdown merchant against the Los Angeles Rams. He has consistently elevated this team. And if you want to make the argument he's the MVP, it's a fair argument because we saw what the Eagles looked like without him. They were an unmitigated disaster. This year, he is the security blanket for this offense. When things are going poorly, give it to Saquon Barkley. When things are going well, give it to Saquon Barkley. If you need a chunk play, give it to Saquon Barkley. He's a home run touchdown waiting to happen on game to game, on down to down instances. That is how good he's been. And I've largely negated the fact or really played down the fact of anyone outside of a quarterback winning MVP. And I'll probably do that again this year. Josh Allen should still be the MVP. But Saquon Barkley is a not so distant second place. He is everything to this Eagles team. But also, you still look at them last year. They still won 11 games last year. They still made the playoffs. If the Bills lost Josh Allen, does anyone think he's making the playoffs? Does anyone think that team is viable at all? No, of course not. So you can't argue that he's more valuable. And you can't argue that he's better. Josh Allen is having a phenomenal year. But Saquon Barkley, if you want to make the argument, I'm not going to scoff at you or turn my nose at you. It doesn't make any sense. Saquon Barkley's been amazing for this team, and I was wrong. It has mattered more than even I thought. It is well worth the money. I thought he was getting too much money to start the year. He's clearly underpaid at this point, and I feel bad for the New York Giants, but let me lean on that New York Giants factor just really quickly. I don't blame the Giants for letting go of Saquon Barkley. I don't at all. And I think if you blame the Giants for letting go of Saquon Barkley, I think it's just a low blow. Does anyone really think if they would have given Saquon Barkley more money that they'd be any different? No. This team was horrendous without Saquon Barkley. This team was horrendous with Saquon Barkley. They've won one playoff win with Saquon Barkley as his tenure as a New York Giant. He wasn't changing anything. Now, it just sucks for the Giants that he went to the Eagles and he's a rock star over there. But if the Giants paid $10, $12 million to Saquon Barkley and they were still an unmitigated disaster, and they would have been, they were last year as well with him, everyone would have said, why did you pay that much money to a running back? You don't need Saquon Barkley. Trade this guy away. Get rid of him. You're wasting his prime. Everyone is just kind of pointing and laughing at the Giants because it is kind of funny. And he did go to the team's rival. But Saquon Barkley leaving the New York Giants was not an awful thing. Guys, at the end of the day, it is a running back. And you can find running backs anywhere. In the draft, on free agency, heck, Joe Mixon was a free agent this year. Saquon Barkley was a free agent this year. James Conner for the Cardinals could have been swooped up by any team, but wasn't. You can find a running back anywhere. I think it is really unfair to go after the Giants for letting go of a running back. They got unlucky. He went to a division rival. And now it's kind of in their face a little bit. But it wasn't saving them. It wasn't helping their team. It wasn't fixing them. They win the same amount of games this year with Saquon Barkley on their team. Maybe they add one more. Maybe they add two more. But even if that happened, then they ruined their draft positioning. Saquon Barkley made no sense on the New York Giants. They were a trailer park home with a Lamborghini. They were in debt, and they needed to sell the Lambo. It was the smart decision. It just sucks that he went to the Philadelphia Eagles. So there's my brief defense of the New York Giants' incompetency, where I just feel like any other team, if they got rid of a running back, we'd be incredibly fine with it. We wouldn't kill them. I mean, heck, the Bengals let go of Joe Mixon. Chase Brown's been just as fine. No one is killing the Cincinnati Bengals for that. They've got another guy. It's easy to replace. Saquon Barkley was still on the Giants, nothing would change, and they'd just be spending a bunch of money on a Lamborghini when they don't have a roof over their heads. It would have been money not well spent. But that's how I feel. I just don't think it's fair to go after the Giants. Thanks so much for tuning into the Ben Garcia Show. We appreciate you guys making us a part of your day. Thanks for watching on YouTube. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, tell a friend about the Ben Garcia Show. You guys will get another show Friday morning, potentially. It is Thanksgiving week. It's kind of tough. There's a lot of games going on Thanksgiving now that I think about it. Maybe you will have to get a show on Friday, but I'm also traveling on Friday as well. It's kind of nice that I can tell you guys this. I have enough viewership to where that actually makes sense to let you guys know where I've been, but I will be in Minnesota from Friday to Monday, watching the Arizona Cardinals beat up on the Vikings potentially. Hopefully I don't eat my words telling you guys this now, but you guys should get something on Friday, and then if you're a Cardinal fan, you should get a preview on Friday as well. We'll see how that kind of stuff shakes out, but either way, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching the Ben Garcia Show here on YouTube, and we will talk to you guys on Friday. I'm pretty sure we'll talk to you guys on Friday. That is a TBD, though. I'm Benjamin Garcia, and until potentially Friday, it's been the Ben Garcia Show.